Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Doug, good morning. Welcome to Coaching Call. How are you, my friend?
Rafael, thank you for having me. I'm great. And you?
Exceptional. Getting better every day.
Yes.
Every day. Just like you are.
That's kind of a key to life right there.
It is.
Getting better every day.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to get into this because, one of the things that I love doing is finding out about people. This is how you and I get closer. This is why we're here, so you can tell your story. Tell me, where were you born and who would influence you the most that you can recall back before the age of, say, 15?
Well, I grew up in Decatur, Illinois, soybean capital of the world. I always joke, a great city to be from. And no offense to those in Decatur, I still have some family there. And so it was a good city to grow up in. It was a working class, manufacturing. And I would say before the age of 15, it would definitely it would be my father. And he showed me what hard work and having goals, and he was very early on in kind of the computers back in the 60s. And so I saw him definitely achieve what he wanted to achieve.
When you say he helped you understand what hard work means, who wants to work hard anyway? I mean, but tell me about that.
Well, I would say and like with any parents, right, it comes with some complexity.
Right.
In any relationship. But he was definitely a work hard, play hard. And, he had a lot of, probably just as much work hard. You could say he had a lot of passion for what he did. He had originally worked for Staley's, which was a soybean processing company. And then he went to work as a controller for Back Racks, which was a clothing store. And he had a lot of passion for helping people be successful, for helping the business grow. And like I say, he also played hard. So he showed me kind of both sides of that.
Yeah. When you say he kind of taught you working hard was important, right? And play hard, right? Do both. Have that balance of enjoy life while you go after what you want. Did he actually give you lessons, or were you just watching him do these things?
Yeah, I would say it was mostly just watching him, although he gave me my very first job, which was cleaning offices at the company that he worked for. And but my parents were divorced, so I had a little bit of confusion with my mother. We were living in maybe you could say lower middle class, working class. And my father, as he was successful, kind of moved into better neighborhoods and bigger houses. And so I probably saw just as much as that you can achieve whatever you put your mind to it. And I don't think he ever told me that.
Right.
But this was a guy who probably you would have thought that he was going to be that successful.
And talk to me, did you have siblings? Did you have brothers, sisters, cousins that you messed around with, if you say?
Yeah, actually, I have two older brothers. One is 6 years older. Another one is 3 years older. And so I was the youngest, so I got away with a lot more than they did. my brother oldest brother especially paved the way. And, what's interesting in our story is, again, my parents were divorced. And so my mother worked nights. So this poor woman, she had 3 boys. And I think so. My oldest brother, say at the time, was 15, maybe 17. Another brother, 14. I'm 11, and she worked nights, so we were home alone.
Wow.
And I grew up very fast in that. I think I was playing poker and drinking by age 13.
Oh my goodness.
So it was definitely a little different childhood growing up.
Yeah, I can. When you talked about your brother paved the way, I can say that the older ones dig the trenches and the younger ones get to play in them, right?
That's very well done. That is no doubt. Yes, my brother got grounded and I got enabled.
There you go. So how was your relationship with your brothers growing up? I mean, there are different age gaps, right? There's a 6 and a 3 age gap. Were you closer to one, or was it all similar? What was that like?
Yeah, I was definitely closer to my older brother, because he's 6 years older. So he's taking care of the younger brother. My poor middle brother, he probably had a little bit more of the middle brother experience.
Right.
But, like any 3 boys in teenage, you had kind of you'd hang out and be friends in one minute, and then the next minute be more than once I chased him around the yard with a golf club and was going to hit him in the head. My poor mother, she had to patch more holes in the walls. She never knew what she would come home to. So God bless her.
Yeah, definitely. God bless her. To understand that she had to take care of the 3 of you and go ahead and do what she had to do. What do you think that taught you in a way?
One of the things that I think it required me to become a parent to truly understand what she accomplished.
Right.
And not that I couldn't appreciate it before.
Right.
But, but I had 2 daughters, now 3 daughters, and, and I had a spouse, and, it was much easier than what she would have accomplished.
Right.
And, I think, the biggest thing I think you don't learn until you're a parent is the sacrifices that she made. And I was just communicating with an old, an employee of mine from many years ago, and she was saying, "Hey, I always talk about you were the best manager I ever worked for." And I always say, "Well, I was one of the crappier managers you worked for," because she was a single mother and I was all in on all about the business. And it wasn't until I became a parent that I ended up getting hold of her and apologizing that I'd been so tough on her. Because again, you just don't know it until you experience it.
Oh, without a doubt. Doug, you grew up and you talked about habits that you somehow started going on. How did that start for you?
Well, I would say is that I grew up in this well, first of all, let me just say I grew up in the 60s, right? So the 60s and the 70s. I had a mother who worked nights. Interesting enough, she worked for the police department. And I had older brothers. So again, I was drinking by age 13.
Wow.
I was smoking pot by 13. So obviously started very early. And so at just over a period of time, I just continued to drink and smoke pot, and then moved into drugs. So it's a big part of my story, and it's a big part of what I end up from coming out of that in teaching with my clients today. But I went to school high all the time. It's funny because I was having a conversation with a friend today, and we were talking about regrets. And, regrets is going to be a difficult word, right? But, because because there's a saying in recovery, you won't regret the past. Well, I sure regret a lot of things, the people I hurt.
Right.
But sometimes without that past, we don't get to where we're at today. And so I look back at those days and, definitely did not have a Brady Bunch, Leave It to Beaver.
Right.
And sorry for you young people, go Google it or go
Google it. Yes.
But, we did not have this perfect little family. And back in the 60s, you either had perfect families or you tried to pretend that you kind of had perfect families.
Right, right. You one of the things that you just reminded me of is that sometimes you get the ugly to see the beauty, right? Oh, you're in a storm until the sun shines, and then you see the beauty. And you reminded me when I was in junior high, there was a kid who was high all the time. And he sat behind me. His name was Keith, and I will never forget this kid. He smelled like marijuana the minute, 0 period, he was there. But the kid showed up every day. He was there, but he was high. And because I was a goody two shoes, I'm over there trying to cover when we had tests. I'm covering so he wouldn't see. And he would nudge me. He would nudge me and say, "Move over. I want to look at your paper." And I was like, no. And then one day I got in trouble because the teacher said I was talking right during the test.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. So you know what I said? I said, why am I fighting him? So every time there was a test, I just moved my shoulder over. I said, go for it. Right. And who am I to tell him whether he should cheat or not? So I realized that we can't control other people, but we can control ourselves. So I said, you know what? If he wants to cheat, that's fine.
Yeah,
I said, but you know what? I gave the leeway, right?
Big realization at that age.
I was I got myself in trouble for trying to fight what was going to happen anyway. Because if he didn't cheat off of me, he was going to cheat off somebody else. So you know what? Let the guy cheat. And yeah, I did realize it at that age that you know what? I can't control other people, but I can control me.
And let's hope Keith found his way.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, he was a good kid. I mean, he was just high all the time, and who knows, like you, what was going on in his life. I have no idea. And I wish one day that if he ever listens to a show or comes along and says, hey, I remember that, let me say hi to you. And I'd love to have a conversation with him.
That would be awesome.
So you went from alcohol to marijuana to bigger drugs. What were they?
Probably a shorter list is what weren't they?
Okay. There you go.
I took just about anything and everything from, not only did I get high to go to school, I loved to take speed when I went to school. But, uppers, downers, but heroin, you name it, but also would lie to myself. And that I remember I had some friends who they would shoot the drugs right with needles, but I would only snort it because only a drug addict would use a needle.
Oh, there you go. You identified.
Right? The stories we can tell ourselves.
Right.
And then my drinking progressed. I did make it through high school. One of the things that helped me was that my junior and senior year, both those years, because the circumstances end up being kind of shorter days. We had a high school actually blow up, and so 2 high schools had to share the same building. So there was some circumstances that shared with me. But I was never one to work hard. I always say that I learned very early on that I could either be funny or I could work hard.
Right.
So I didn't want to work hard. So my greatest claim to life was I was named wittiest of my senior class, which also meant I was willing to make a joke in front of the teacher and get sent to the principal's office because, hey, who doesn't like a good laugh?
Right. So let me ask you, during this time, what were your parents, do you recall, what were they going through, trying to deal with a young man who is kind of like lost?
Well, as you put it, right? The older brother, he dug the trench.
Mhm.
So my father, we saw him like once or twice a week because again, divorced
Right.
parents. And yeah, I think by the time my mother, by the time I got to a certain age, I think she had kind of, the two older brothers had kind of worn her down. My brother, when he got caught with pot, she'd take it, he'd be grounded.
Mm.
And by the time it got to me, she just kind of gave up and just put it in my drawer and ignored it.
Mm.
Uh, and by no means was it hers to fix, right?
Right.
I
Correct.
mean, um, the I was the first one to. I'm not true. My oldest brother, he kind of worked construction. He went straight from high school into construction. My middle brother did a little bit of college and then left. And I was going to be the one who would be the college graduate. And I will never forget that I ended up dropping out
Mhm.
because of drinking and drugs.
Right.
I always say I was working full time, drinking full time, or partying full time, and going to school full time. So something had to give,
Right. Oh
and
yeah.
right. So I gave probably the thing that shouldn't have been was I dropped out of school, and it's probably the most disappointed I'd ever seen my mother
Mhm.
in my life, and I'm sure she knew it's because of the lifestyle I was living.
Yeah. The lifestyle, the habits, the continuous. I guess I'm going to say downfalls, right? Because you don't get up every day and say, "This is the best day of my life" because I'm high. You may think that because you're high, but
Right.
that's not the reality of it. Um, so you dropped out of college, but you held the job. How'd you do that?
Well, that's a little that's a little up for debate. I did try some different jobs. I After I dropped out of college, well, my father owned a uh, he owned a marina down in Florida, so my girlfriend and I moved down to there, and then we ended up kind of moving back. But anyway, I tried different jobs. I carried mason blocks for that job. I think that job lasted 4 hours.
Mm,
I
because it's
tried.
heavy.
I felt like my arms were dragging on the
Right.
ground. I uh, I tried cleaning scallops for a living, and I'll never forget because there was this woman who had to be probably 80 years old, half blind, and she could do a bushel of scallops. Well, she could probably do about 8 bushels to my one.
Wow.
So I could see my hands were all cut. That wasn't going to work. I tried working at a Firestone factory. That didn't work. Um, but I ended up working in my father's marina, and I always call that my Jimmy Buffett, living my Jimmy Buffett songs at
Mm,
that point.
right,
And
right.
so I was able to, I was able to work uh, and and party at the same time. Probably didn't hurt that it was my father's business,
Right, right, right.
and eventually that would lead to my downfall.
So you talk about your downfall. Let's get into that, right? What is it that really brought you to that precipice, if you will?
Yeah. So my father ended up selling this marina, and we opened up a marine supply store, so boat supplies, and we were partners in it, and it was going pretty well. But I was drinking. I owned my own business, so I could start drinking at it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Right.
So usually it was noon in my store, or maybe even earlier.
Mm,
And then I really started using the drugs, and this is back in the mid '80s, the Miami Vice days, all this cocaine running through. So through where I lived in Florida. So a lot of my clients were drug dealers, runners, and so I got where I was using cocaine so much that I was trading it for products, and I started stealing from the family business,
mm,
and so and I wasn't raised this way, right? But I
Right.
was morally, physically, financially just on the verge of bankruptcy.
Wow.
And so I'd been stealing this from this business. And my father couldn't figure out why it seemed like we always had some customers, but there was no money ever in the business. And so he started to look hard at this business and started to dig into the books. And I knew the gig was up because I couldn't hide
Right. No
how
hiding
bad.
anymore.
No more. So it was on a Super Bowl Sunday in '87. Broncos and Giants, I believe, were playing. And he called to meet the Monday after the Super Bowl. We need to talk. And so I drank and drugged for about 36 hours straight.
Oof.
And all through the Super Bowl. And then on Monday morning, I was waking up, and that moment where your eyes, you're kind of starting to wake, but your eyes haven't opened yet, hungover as hell, or still drunk and high, and all of a sudden I heard, "We'll be landing at Houston International," and I woke up, and I was in the center seat of an airplane.
Oh my!
Wasn't sure how I got there. Had to think about it, and I was trying to run away. And it was at that moment that I just kind of knew this is bad. And just so happened my older brother was living in that city. I was on my way to Hawaii because, where else should you go? If you can't be in Florida anymore, go to Hawaii.
Right.
And I called him from the airport, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Dad's looking for you. He's pretty mad." Yeah, I would think so. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for me on finally hitting that bottom.
Wow. Do you recall how old you were then?
Yep, I was 28.
28. And a lot of people have it together, but you didn't have it together at 28. You actually were losing everything that you even worked for, or the ambition that you saw your dad work hard, play hard. And you took the lesson, I think, at that point is play hard. and so you said you started your downhill then. When did you actually hit the bottom?
Yeah, so I hit a lot of bottoms.
Okay.
I just found new bottoms.
Of course. And that happens for everybody. But there was one last bottom that you hit and you said, you know what? I got to go back up now. Where was that?
That was probably sitting, it was flying back. I ended up flying back to Florida to face my father. And I was trying to put a game plan together.
Right.
And what am I going to tell him? And so I decided, and I hadn't gotten honest really with myself yet. I decided that I would tell him that, and let me just say before that, I'd had some DWI. I had a DWI. I had, all these other signposts along the way. And I just ran them over. Signposts be damned. And, but I thought, it's the cocaine. The cocaine is the problem. And so I went and met with my father. You can imagine how upset he was. And, and that's the problem with addiction, alcoholism, right? We end up really hurting the people we love the most.
Of course.
Right. And it's our own selfishness, but in the same respects, it's what I did. I got up every day and I drank and I drugged and tried to hit that sweet spot between loaded and blackout.
Oof. Yeah.
I did that 350 days a year. And so that bottom really was, all right, seeing my father, but I hadn't yet decided that I was done. I was going to give up the cocaine, maybe stop drinking for 6 months. And I was not going to quit smoking pot because there was nothing wrong with pot. and 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 the, and I end up. My father wanted me to see a therapist, and he was a little different, and but he recommended that I try a recovery meeting, and it was there that I finally kind of hit that point of surrender. Because what I saw that people who were happy without a drink and a drug and who had their life together, and I didn't want to quit drinking. I didn't want to use drugs, but I wanted what they had.
And so is that when you realize that in order to get what they have, I have to give something up, right? Something has to give.
Yeah. I had to make, what I realized is I had to go a day without a drink. I had to go a day without a drug. But a guy said something to me that really changed my life. He says, but you have to change the person that you are, because there's kind of a saying, right? If you're a drunken jerk and all you do is stop drinking, you're just going to be a dry jerk.
Yeah.
And so it really was my journey really that started right there on change and growth.
Yeah, without a doubt. I want to take a little bit of a commercial break. Let's take a look at this. Take a peek.
You followed the rules, tried the restrictions, counted the carbs, the steps, and the failures. You're not lazy, you're exhausted from doing it all without real change. What if the problem isn't you, but the plan? Sifu's Mind-Body Method is a 90-day transformation built on 7 unshakable pillars: mindset, movement, nutrition, hydration, fasting, journaling, and faith. This isn't another shortcut. It's your structure, your strength, your reset. You don't need harder, you need better. Ready to begin? Start today.
Yeah. A reset. That's what you were looking for, right?
A new way forward.
A new way forward. The old way was not working anymore.
No, it was one of the things I learned was how just chaotic my life was. But, and for, people watching, sometimes when you're in the chaos, you don't know it's chaos, right? It becomes your routine. And until I had that moment where I could start to make that change, it was just not paying my bills was what I did. Hurting people is what I did. And until you start to make that fundamental change, those things will continue, sometimes just looking a little different.
Yeah. So a lot of people, they know what has to be done. How did you start to take those steps to fundamentally change who you were into the new person that you've become?
Well, and really good question, right? So one of the things that I've kind of come to see in my life is that every time there was a moment of change and growth, whether it was big or small, that there had to be some type of there was an interruption, right? So this interruption where we quit telling ourselves where we interrupt the stories we tell ourselves, we interrupt the routines, we interrupt the habits. And for me, one of the moments was very early. I was talking to this guy over coffee, and I'm telling him about my life and what a disaster it is, right? Because, right, I have no money. I've hurt my father. I've bankrupted this business. I got to save the business. Blah, 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 blah. And the guy just kind of interrupted me. He says, wait a second. Right now, all you have to do is to go a day without a drink and a drug. what if you went a day without a drink and a drug? And it was that kind of, right, that stopping of the interruption, that and that moment of pause really started to kind of make that change.
Thank you for
That's
sharing that, because a lot of people think they have to do this whole big, huge plan instead of taking the first simple step. And the more simple it is, the easier it is to accomplish. One day. That's all it
it.
takes. One day. Don't worry about next week. Worry about today, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
no doubt. And that's what I had to do, right? Is
Mhm.
I had that interruption and then just bring it down to the day, right? And I 2 years ago wrote a book, and it's called "The Day Makes the Year Makes a Life."
Mm.
And one of the things I always tell people is, right, is all of your success is in the day, right? It's not 6 months from now. It's not 2 years from now. It's what you do today. And now sometimes we get so stuck in the past, we can't be present in the day,
That's
or
right.
we're so worried about the future, we do nothing for the day
Mhm.
and nothing happens.
Yeah, yeah. I believe that the stories of our lives is what impacts others as well, right? Because your story impacted your parents, impacted the people that you've hurt along the way. But because you changed your story, you've impacted people differently. You've written what, 3 books now?
Yep.
Congratulations, right?
Thank you.
And had you been on that journey that you never changed, that you didn't take that one day, you wouldn't be here with me today talking about the 3 accomplishments. And those are minor compared to the bigger accomplishments you've had in your life. Do you recall that one day? What was that one day, that first one day was like for you?
I'm sorry, what can you ask
What
it
was
again?
that first one day that you actually said, today's the day, and you actually took it? Were you like, I need drugs, I need alcohol, what was that one day? How painful was that day? Because it had to be painful. It had to be,
Mm.
the desires were so deep that you had to fight those demons.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was so hard, but because I had seen others and met others who said had been just where I was at,
Mm,
they made it through. And you talk about our stories, and we all have a story, right? We all have a story. And each day adds a new little bit to the story. And so often we get stuck, right? I had to quit saying, right, that I needed a drink, and what I needed to do is I can live today without a drink.
mhm.
And I was still living with some guys who were actively drinking and drugging. So I can remember just kind of being in my bedroom, just trying to get through the day. But then I started also to hang out, right, with the people who were the kind of person I wanted to become.
Mm, that's huge.
And that's really important. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That the friends I had, and there's some of them are still friends today. Most of them are still friends today. But at
right.
that moment, I couldn't be part of that world because I needed to change who I was.
Yeah, yeah. It's not easy changing who you are, who you believe, who you're so stuck in it, right? It's almost like, I don't want to use this analogy, but this is the only thing that keeps coming through my head. Imagine a mouse when it gets stuck in that trap, that's that glue trap, and it can't get out. And it struggles and it struggles, and eventually it gets defeated and it gets sucked in. But thank God you didn't get sucked back in, right? Because you were
Mm.
living with those people who were like, come on, what are you doing? Come over here and join us. We're gonna have a drink. We're gonna do a little drugs. So you found a way to, almost like a snake leaving its skin, to get out of that. And like I said, I'm sure it wasn't easy. Listen, I have not been in that kind of addiction. We all have addictions. I don't care who you are.
There's
Everybody's
usually something,
addicted
right?
to something, whatever it is in your life. Let me reset my camera there. We're all somewhat addicted to something in life. But what is it that is going to, I can be addicted to health. I can be addicted to the person that I love. I can be addicted to my work. But if it's going to hurt in the long run, then it's a bad addiction. But a good addiction, and we forget that addictions can also be good, right? An addiction to help another person, it just embodies you, right? So a drug addiction embodies you, but it depends on the addiction. And some people say addiction, oh my God, they always say negative on it. But I say an addiction could be a good thing. So you started to become addicted to a new way of living. And we understand by what you've already told us, it wasn't easy because you're living with the people who want to pull you back in. That mousetrap is pulling you back in. That glue is pulling you back down, right? But you fought. You fought for you, the new you. Not easy. I commend you for that.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
You know, I think for me, you know, and you know, like I say, whether it's with health, it's whatever these habits are, that the thing is that, right, when we do something to the point where it harms others, right, that, and then more important, you know, it's keeping us from being who we really can be. You know, I mean, all these things that I had done, drink and drug and steal and hurt people, and you know, there was a wake in my, you know, behind me, kind of like Pigpen and Charlie Brown, with the dust is going everywhere. You know, I'm just leaving this mess of everywhere I went, and but you know, but most important is that deep down, you know, what I thought was happiness, it really wasn't. And so, you know, I think all of us are here to, on a daily basis, find this next level of ourselves. And, you know, one of the ways I have this kind of simple way at looking at my life is that in any moment, I'm moving towards or away from something. I'm moving towards or away from happiness, or towards happiness, or I'm moving away from happiness, right? I'm moving towards being a good husband, or I'm moving away from that. And the same for my alcoholism and my drug addiction. I'm either moving towards it or away from it. You know, it's been a long time since I've had a drink and a drug, but it's not like that I'm immune.
Right.
You never know what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think personal growth on a daily basis is so important.
Absolutely. I was with somebody and they kept telling everybody that they're an alcoholic and they haven't had a drink in however many days, and you know, they're counting the days. And I said to him, I said, why do you keep identifying as somebody that you don't want to be? He had to think back. I said, let me ask you a question. If you died today and you went up to heaven, do you think God's going to separate you from everybody else? Because you're an alcoholic, you go over there. Because you're this, you go over there. No, not at all. So stop identifying as somebody who you no longer are.
Yeah,
And
I could debate that.
He was blown away by that thought alone, because he's like, I never thought of it that way, right?
Right. I could debate that to some
course.
degree, right? The fact is that there's a difference between being a sober alcoholic and being an active alcoholic.
Correct.
And I think right. And so one of the reasons I think, you know, I always identify as an alcoholic is because you can put a drink into your body and nothing happens, right? I put a drink into my body, bad things are going to happen.
Because it's going to flood back in, right?
Yeah, one of the best descriptions I know of is it's an allergy of body and an obsession of the mind. And so right, and you can have a drink and have a half a drink and like, well, I'm done. right? But I'm going to need, if I have one drink, I'm going to need 20 drinks.
Right.
Right. And so I think it's important, right, that there's not this cure to alcoholism,
Right.
right, but a daily reprieve.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So I think the key, right, is it's how do we identify ourselves as an alcoholic? A lot of people say they're a recovered alcoholic. And, but, for me, it's important I not lose that identity.
Right.
That I'm an alcoholic, because, if you watch the commercials on television, I mean, have a drink, all of a sudden you're sitting on the beach and you're surrounded by cheerleaders and
Right. That sounds great. We should all have one, right?
Right. And that never happened to me.
No.
Right. I ended up in a seedy motel or the center seat of an airplane.
Yeah.
But, but most people can drink safely.
Correct.
I live in Massachusetts, right? Marijuana is legalized.
Yeah.
Which,
in New York it is too. Yeah.
Let me tell you, in 1985, I would have killed for that.
Correct. So here's the thing, right? When I say that, you have to identify, and you still have to claim your past, because it is your past, right? But I also think that we should not introduce ourselves as like, "Hi, I'm Rafael and I'm an alcoholic." It should be more like, "I am Rafael and whatever. I'm a dad. I'm a parent. I'm your friend. Whatever it is." And then if we get deeper into a conversation and somebody says something, because I don't think that you run around and say, or even wear a shirt, say, I'm a recovering alcoholic, right? So it's the identity that it's the past. This is who I used to be, right? It's also somebody who used to be in the Marines or the Navy. They're no longer in it, right? Maybe they were in it 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They'll always, and I know Marines say always, once a Marine, always a Marine. True, I get that. It's the identity, but you're no longer active, right? So you're no longer an active alcoholic. And I really appreciate you being so candid and so open to have this discussion with me and allowing me to ask you these questions, right? I really, really appreciate that, because a lot of people have to understand that what you went through was your story. And somebody may be going through a similar story that you went through, and maybe this podcast, maybe this live show, they need to hear it. They need to understand. They need to get into either a meeting or into a space where somebody's going to help them so that they can reclaim who they're meant to be. Reset, right? That's what Sifu's Mind Body Method's about. Reset, because nobody's born. Listen, I think we're all born perfect, right? But it's the habits that we pick up along the way that messes us up, right? Because I'm far from perfect, but every day I try to improve just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things when we talk about stories, right, is there's our stories of who we were. But at the same point there's a whole new story that can be written on who we can become. And one of the things I 100% agree is, if you and I met and we had dinner, in person, I wouldn't say, if you asked, oh, you want some wine? I'd be like, no, I don't drink.
Right.
I wouldn't. Right. I wouldn't say I'm an alcoholic.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way of saying, no, I don't drink.
Right.
That's enough.
And if you ask, you go, well, why not? I'm like, well, I if I drink, I have an allergy. If I drink, I break out in handcuffs.
I love that.
Most people don't, right?
Right.
But the point would be is that I think, these stories that, I work with a lot of clients on identity, right? And so what you find with people is that a lot of their story, they didn't even write. It was given to them.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so the story may not even be true. Or the story is the past story, not of who they are today.
Right. I got to tell you, Doug, I am so happy that we're having this conversation today and I'm getting to know you. And when we do sit down and have some food together, I'm not going to look at you across the table from you and go, oh, that guy's an alcoholic. I would never, ever judge you that way. Even though I know your story, I would never see you that way. Right. And I know that if I decided to have a cocktail or whatever, not that I usually do at dinner, but you wouldn't judge me either, right? And so there comes a time in our lives that we have to accept the people in front of us for who they are currently, right? Because their
Absolutely.
past does not define their future. And I have to say that 1,000 times because a lot of people think that, oh, because you were a drug addict, now you're still a drug addict. No, you were, right? So talk to me. You decided to write your first book. What was that catalyst? What was that catapult to say, I need to write a book?
Well, the very first book I wrote, so so my story is that after I lost that business, right? So with my father, I lost that business. I went to work for the Sharper Image, and that was a lot of fun. And then I went to work for Bose Corporation, and I was ended up being director of retail for Bose Corporation. And after I left in Bose to be able to start to speak and consult on and coach on retail. And so my first book was called The Profitable Retailer. And
Makes sense.
so, yeah, right. kind of based really a little bit on a story when we were at Bose one time. A guy actually said in a meeting, goes, "No, this was highly successful. We just didn't make any money." And I have a friend of mine who says he tells his managers, the only thing my bank takes is money. They don't take compliments.
Right.
They don't take reviews. They take money. Right.
That's it.
And it's how we keep score in business. And so I needed to write this book in the industry that I was working in. And so, and I was in that industry for like 16 years. And that book is, that first book is always, I think, one of the hardest to write. And, and also if you've written multiple books, I always say, don't go back and look at that first book. It's like, but it was important for me from a credibility point. Right. And I wanted to make sure, you're right, that I shared, I had a little bit of a different perspective than others. I really believed in, and still believe, right, in the power of the customer experience and how independent businesses and retailers can compete, in today's market. And it's really right. It's about that connection with the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then you decided, well, I like that I wrote a book. I'm going to write a second book. What was that book about?
Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, there's a long time between the two books.
Right.
And so I had a lot of success as a retail consultant and speaking around the world. Spoke in South Africa, Australia, saw the world doing it. But I was getting a little tired of traveling. And a client of mine asked me if I could run his business. He had 2 young children, and but it wasn't in retail. It was a law firm, title company, and I wanted to get off the road. He made me a good offer. I told him I don't want to work for you, but he made me a good offer, and so that was in 2017, and that really worked out well because the speaking industry and all that travel and everything, right, when COVID hit, it went to zero for most people.
To zero for many people, yeah.
And I was in an industry that when interest rates went down, business went up. So I got lucky. I took a job that I probably didn't think I would take, but I enjoyed running a company. And so we were highly successful during COVID, did a lot of hiring. Business went up, 500-600%, whatever it was. It was crazy time. We were out there, working in office during COVID. And as interest rates went back up, it was time for him to take the business back over. It didn't make sense for someone to, we were, I'd hired all these people, and unfortunately I had to lay all these people off.
Oof.
So in 2023, I left there, 2022, and had done well. It's like, what am I going to do next? And then I knew that I wanted to kind of share what I had learned up to this point.
Nice.
And so that book, again, it's called The Day Makes the Year, Makes a Life. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, on my website. But that book is kind of, I think, an interesting book because it's based on how I applied the lessons of recovery in business.
Mm. And
the biggest really thing on there, right, is that, that it's about how you live in the day. And hence the title.
I love the name of your new book. Start with What If, right? And it's going across the screen. It's startwithwhatif.com. You can go check out Doug that way. Talk to us about the precipice, if you will, that you were on, and you said, this is the book. Where did that title come from? What's the meat and bones of this book, if you will?
Well, yeah. So one of the things is in writing The Day Makes a Year, Makes a Life, I was able to kind of look at, again, so what are these elements that I took from recovery and applied into business? And so then I, 2 years later, decided, well, I want to look at my life and see where did big change and growth happen? And what were these moments? And so as you have certain ways that you live in your life, and you haven't necessarily identified, you haven't named it, right? And you haven't really broken it down. And so I had time to do that. And that's when I realized that every big moment in my life, or even a small moment that led to change and growth, happened with an interruption, right? And so that guy who asked me in that first week of sobriety, what if you went a day without a drink and a drug, right? He interrupted my normal thinking, my normal actions. And so I started to kind of try to look at these things that says, where's this happen? And here's what's interesting. The book I wrote is not the book I set out to write.
Really?
I set out to write a book about what I call the what if rule. And the what if rule basically is you can always have a different perspective and options. There's always a different perspective and more options. And so I wanted to be able to share a framework that people could use to change and grow. But I told myself, if you have to write a whole book on this rule, then no one's going to use it.
Right.
It has to be so simple, right, that I can tell somebody, or I could write a chapter on it. And so I end up taking the what if rule and making a chapter in it. And then the rest of the book is about how to apply the what if rule. And the what if rule, it's real simple. It's 3 steps. First is pause, right? The interruption, right? So whether it's a pause in the moment when you're getting upset with your spouse, whether it's pause when you have a tailgater, when it's pause when you get that text or email, but it's also pause, right? You talk about it in journaling, right? It's one of your pillars.
Yes.
Right. So, it's how you start your day. So pause of how you start your week. And then the second step is just to stop and ask yourself a what if question. Right. And so most of the time when we think about what if, right, people are using it to look backwards. Well, what if I'd gotten a different degree? What if I hadn't gotten married? What if I hadn't gotten kids? What if I hadn't taken that job? Right. And those things, all that does is those ask questions that really it's looking backwards.
Yeah.
And so I use what if
they
questions.
spawn negativity, don't they?
no doubt. And most of the time, right, it's probably wrapped around some kind of regret. And instead, that second step of question, the what if question, is how to look at something from a different perspective. So, what if the person who's tailgating me is late for work? Right? What if I just ignored the snarky comment in the email? Right? So, and then the third step in the what if rule is just go. Right? So really, when you get down to it, what if questions are a way to reframe.
Yeah.
But here's the problem with just mindset and reframing. Mindset's important, but a new thought doesn't change anything without action. Right? Knowledge without application has no value. New thoughts.
It's useless.
Yeah, exactly. So the third step of the what if rule is go. So it's pause, question, go. And you can apply it in any parts of your life.
Absolutely. I love the questions of what if, right? What if I did it differently? What if I did it better? What if I improved? What if I went to the gym today instead of not going to the gym? What if I gave somebody a hug instead of a handshake? What if I said to them, you look great, instead of like, oh, why do you look like that? So it's the positive spin on the what if. I love that. Before we go on, I want to share one more thing with you. Take a look.
The city never sleeps, and neither do the dreamers who build its pulse. From every corner of the globe they come. Visionaries, creators, leaders, each carrying a spark ready to ignite the world. This is not an event. It's a revolution of rhythm and reason. A symphony of minds. A movement of momentum. Sifu Rafael, Lancelot, Jose Escobar. Together they set the stage for brilliance. This is the NYC experience. Mastermind, light up the city. They coming from the east, coming from the west. Knowledge on deck, put the truth to the test. Leaders in motion, hearts in sync, dropping wisdom so deep it'll make you think. They bring stories, sweat and flame, different faces, one shared name. Elevation, that's the sound. NYC experience, mastermind, where purpose is found.
Oh yeah,
Best jingle of all time, right there.
There you go. I love it. Every time I hear it, I can't help but move, right?
I know, yeah, it is so well done.
Thank you. So, and anybody who's interested, you want to join us in Tampa, it's actually happening February 27th through March 1st. Doug, we'd love for you to be there with us as well. When you consider your life and you're looking back at your life, Doug, there are moments that changed who you are today. There are moments that you could have done differently, but you can't take them back at all. You can't redo them because they already happened, right? It's already in the past. It's in the rear view mirror. But reflecting back, is there a moment that you're super proud of?
I thought that question was going to go a different direction. I love
You
that.
thought so, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the answer, and I think a lot of people answer this right, but it's when you look back, right, nobody's going to put on a tombstone is, yeah, he was a heck of a manager, and I was a good manager, right? Right. So, yeah. So I think the moments I'm most proud of is that it's those moments that when you see that a way that your children or the other people in your life are the better because you were a small part of it. And, I I look at some of the people, and I think if there's a guy I know who he was a manager at Bose, and the HR person didn't really think he should be promoted.
Mm.
And, he was a little different than the others. And, and today he's a very highly successful business person.
Mm.
And so, the moment I'm proud of is that I went to bat for him in a brief moment because of what was the right thing to do. So I think it's looking back at our children and the people around us who that they're being successful, and you played maybe just a very small part of it.
I love that. I love that. Doug, what a great conversation. Thank you again for being here with us. What I want to do is give you about 45 seconds or so. Your website is going across the bottom. It's startwithwhatif.com. Tell us what somebody can expect when they go to it.
Yeah, so I'd love for you to go there. And because one of the things is that I want people to get this framework. I want them to be able to apply it in their life. So when you go to startwithwhatif.com, you're going to get a 44-page excerpt of the book.
Wow.
And in there is the entire framework of Start With What If. So I'm going to give you that at no cost. And so the book is based on, again, the framework is Start With What If, the what if rule, what if moments. And then there's 52 questions that you can ask yourself on a weekly basis. So you can read it in different ways. I've had a lot of people who, with reviews, some people read it front to back. Some people just open up a section and read it. But I want to give you that framework. So, and then you'll also be signed up for my newsletter. And then you also have links if you want to purchase the book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, which supports small bookstores. It's available around the world.
Love it. Love it. Everybody, make sure you go to startwithwhatif.com. Check Doug's book out. You're going to want to download it. You're actually going to want to buy it. Make sure you buy it, because for me, having a physical book, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. I'm on the computer all the time. So for me, reading on the computer, I want to save my eyes. So a book, oh my goodness, there's nothing like a book. I can't wait to get your copy. When we think about what we've spoken about today, I encourage everybody to share this episode with somebody who needs to hear the messages that Doug shared with us today. The fact that you may be at the low point, but you don't have to stay there. You can move forward. Listen, Doug is a great example of where this man has been. Your story is phenomenal. Thank you again, Doug, for sharing it with us and being an important part of my life now. Now that we're friends, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And, the last thing I would just share is never give up on someone. Never give up.
That's right. That's right. Do me a favor. Hang out for a minute, Doug. Everybody else, share this with somebody. Somebody needs to hear what we spoke about today. God bless everybody. Take care.
Take care.